in the community. It is, I was saying to Simon before we got started, it is really such a pleasure and an honor for me when I get to speak to business groups. And when I share a bit of my story, although my company now is Ecstatic Intimacy and I'm called the Soul Love Mentor, I'm an electrical engineer by degree. And my corporate career was oil and gas and high tech in the good old boy network of Houston, Texas in the 90s. So I did the corporate thing, and so much of Simon, I love the introduction that you did when you, as you spoke about strategy and the planning and the structure, and then the felt sense. And I'll refer to my story at different moments. And back in those days, felt sense was not something that I relied on. What I felt was actually conditioned out of me. I don't think I've ever mentioned this in a talk before, but I remember one of my bosses saying, you cannot use the word feel in any kind of business writing. And I went, oh, what you think, that's okay, but not what you feel. And I went, oh, okay. And so if I really, well, actually, before I tell that part of the story, so again, following with what Simon said, when I get to come and now speak to businesses and remembering both that I'm an entrepreneur leading a business now, and then what that corporate life was like, to be able to bring a wholeness to who we are. We are that same person. I like to say from the boardroom to the bedroom and everywhere in between. And it's the truth of who we are is that person everywhere all the time. And a lot of us, and particularly, I'll talk a little bit about masculine and feminine, which tends to correlate men, women, but not always. And I'll speak to that. But that we have to put on a hat. We have to be in a role. We have to do certain things when we're in our business environment. And then we have to do certain things when we're in our personal environment. And that transition for some of us is more challenging than others. And we wonder why some things work so well in business and they don't in our personal life, or why does this show up in my personal life and not in my business? So coming to look at a much more holistic level. And so to share a little bit more of my story so that you have an idea of who is this that's shown up here to have this really weird topic in this kind of business environment, is that although my story starts on some level back in the 90s in that corporate environment, it really goes back to the 70s and the heart of the women's movement, the beginning of the divorce movement. And all of the ways that I thought I was supposed to show up as a woman, what you could do, what you couldn't do, what was okay, what you couldn't, and what wasn't okay. At the same time, heart of the divorce movement, my family was one of the first divorced families in the neighborhood. And watching the dynamic between my parents and their relationship and then their subsequent relationships, and all of the belief systems that I took on about love, about trust, about men, about women, about myself. And it is our belief systems that define our lives. Wayne Dyer wrote a book back in the 70s, I'll see it when I believe it. What we walk around saying is, I'll believe it when I see it. But it doesn't work that way. Whatever's going on in here, whatever's programmed in here is what creates the reality out there. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about our sex life or our business life or anything else. What we hold is what we experience. So I picked up a lot of what I would say were very unsupportive, even unhealthy beliefs. And one of them was dad left. And one of them was, I'm not enough. I got to do more. If I don't show up well. Now, this wasn't the truth, but we pick up our belief systems because we don't know anything better at the time. So there was insecurity here. There was uncertainty here. There was doubt. And so if you describe that traditional perfectionist, that I'm going to prove to you how good I am, how strong I am, that I can handle it. And And underneath, while I'm striving to prove it all to you, I'm going to doubt it. So this constant battle. And so that was what the corporate life was like. I ended up getting an engineering degree because I was good at math and science. I could figure things out. I could solve problems. And so I follow this path that takes me again to Houston, Texas, oil and gas, Shell, Raytheon. Final company was NetIQ. So those places where I was at 27 managing 60-year-old men. And I decided how I had to show up in order to be successful at that. Hindsight, a lot of my decisions were not the best decisions, but they got me through. And so promotion after promotion after promotion, and I still wasn't happy. I was still working my ass off, trying to, again, be enough, be respected. And yet I had incredible respect, but that was out there and it was different than in here. Simultaneously, I'd married 6'3", blonde-haired, blue-eyed, concert pianist, valedictorian, par golfer, you name it, Prince Charming. And we were divorced 4 years later. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? And what's wrong with men? So then I'd walk around going, what's wrong with all the men? Because I got to figure it out. It's about them. Yeah, fast forward, it was never about them. It was about me. It's always about us. Whatever's happening or not happening in our lives is really about, again, what's going on in here. So fast forward, the week of 9/11, I found myself at an event. I was with Tony Robbins, actually, in Hawaii. And that was an event that changed my life because we couldn't leave. We were with 2,000 people from 40 countries. And walking through that week and having that experience and not being able to go home, we couldn't rent a car and drive home from Hawaii. We were stuck. We weren't going anywhere. So we stayed in this crucible, if you will. And obviously we processed the national events. And then we picked up on much of what had originally been planned. And at the end of that week, the last day was relationship mastery. And in his sharing of relationship mastery, he spoke about the words masculine and feminine. And I knew the words, but I never thought about how they applied to me. And it was as if I sat there with my jaw on the floor for hours that day going, oh my God, this is why I'm successful. This is why I'm promoted. This is why I'm miserable. This is why I'm exhausted. This is why I can't have an orgasm. This is why I'm divorced. This is it, on and on and on. And I walked out of that event and I knew that I had to figure this out for myself and that I didn't want another woman to go through the pain that I went through. And I didn't want another man to go through the pain that I put men through. Because when this dynamic gets off between the masculine and the feminine, it can be miserable for everybody involved. And that's on a business level and a personal level. And there's lots to talk about that. So I'll go into more detail. But it was that wake-up call that fast forward then male-female communications, traditional communication dynamics, leadership, masculine, feminine dynamics, tantric education, and married all of these to be able to serve this entire path of love. And when we're doing our soul's calling, when our business happens to align with our purpose and why we're here, it's extraordinary. And if our business doesn't directly align to what our soul's calling is, our purpose, if you will, it doesn't have to, but we have to bring those elements into what we're doing in order to have the fulfillment, in order to have what I would call ecstasy. So ecstasy being those moments that take your breath away, those moments that, wow, how did that happen? Oh my God. In another way, we could call it best evers. Like it's the best ever month. It's the best ever sex. It's the best ever sunrise or sunset. And those best evers are best evers because they stop us in the moment. And we have an experience that we can't accurately put words to, but we can feel it in our body, in our being, in our soul. And if we could have more moments like that take your breath away, and even if we didn't call them ecstatic, if we called them amazing, alive, juicy, who would like to have more amazing, alive, juicy, passionate moments? Anybody wants more of that? Okay, so this is a bit of what we're going to talk about. Now, I can also say that when I say passionate and juicy and alive and all of those, that some people can go, what are we talking about? You know, and the ones that didn't come here might be like, what are we talking about? So if that shows up in your body, it's okay. Just notice, what's your relationship with joy, with passion, with pleasure? And we'll explore some of this. So I'll flip on some slides, but I wanted to just begin this conversation by inviting you to be aware of your own thoughts that go off, which are going to be reflective of your beliefs. Be aware of when your body goes, oh, that feels good. Be aware of when your body goes, doesn't want to breathe. Oh my gosh, I'm scared. Like, all of those are signs. All of that is information that will open up greater and greater possibilities, so that my very last slide speaks about the mission that I hold, but for whatever reason, it's here. And the last part of that mission is so that every one of us can know the deepest of connections, pleasures, intimacies, and joys that are available to us on this human journey. And so that's what I hope you get a taste of out of this, is that you can have more access to the joy, the pleasure, the passion, that you can bring it to your work and you can bring it to the rest of your life. So let me bring up some slides here. And also, because we have a fairly small group and we have a good amount of time, I'm open to questions and comments as we go. So if there's something that you want to say, stop and let's explore, please feel free to bring that in. So let's do this. All right. And I'm going to fast forward through a few of these. But let's bring these words in. Passion, power, pleasure, prosperity. When I was talking about the fullness, the deepest richness of life, like, these are some of the words that really matter and speak to that. And the prosperity isn't just, a lot of times we can use that word and take it directly to money and finances. And certainly that's a part of it. But prosperity is the depth of our connections. It's the experiences that we get to have in life. It might be what we do on vacation. It might be looking into a newborn's eyes. It might be the touch of our lover's skin, and that we get the privilege to have that experience day after day after day. So prosperity comes in a myriad of forms. The richness of life. And then giving ourselves permission to actually enjoy it. I've had all kinds of conditioning that says, oh, it's not really okay, or I'm afraid to actually enjoy it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So, some words to inspire us. And I think I'm going to skip over. Well, I'll just go through these real quickly. This is part of what we're speaking to, is that we're powerful. We've done big things. And yet there's some part that knows there's more. And if you've been working really hard at it and not getting all the results that you want, maybe there's tiredness. There's a desire to attract more. Maybe there's a desire to have more juice, more passion, because somehow it's gotten lost in the work. Even if we started a business that was aligned with our soul and then aligned with our passion, the journey can take us away from the joy and the juice at times. So how do we get reconnected back to that? Maybe we know that maybe we're super successful. but we know there's more. We know there's still a part of us that isn't willing to take that risk, to play bigger, that might bring the truest, deepest ecstasy. And that's a bit of that. You know, there's something more. There's more impact, and yet not fully stepping into it. Maybe love or passion is faded. And so we'll talk a bit about how we get access to this power that's rooted in our passion. How to be captivating, magnetically attractive. Turned on is going to be part of that. The deepest pleasures. Calling in even more of the dreams and desires, the ecstasy, the juice of life. And again, if that scares you, just notice. And how to have the magnetic essence that can attract in what's truly meant for you. And then we will there's a little bit of a dance of both the felt sense, but also the structure. Like, what's the path? What are the steps that are key in this so that you can live the fullest life that you're meant to live? And I'm going to skip over that and jump right into turn on. So turn on. This idea, getting turned on in life, love, and business. Now, so often, like, turned on means sex, which, yes, certainly it applies there. But turned on is living a turned on life. It is a life that feels good. It is a life that excites us, that we wake up in the morning and it's like, I want to get out of bed. I can't wait to have this day. I can't wait to interact with these clients. The creation that's happening, the project that's happening, it fuels me, it feeds me. It fuels you, it feeds you. So notice throughout this conversation, as we're speaking about these topics, I invite you to reflect on yourself. How often do I feel turned on? How often do I feel that passionate? How often do your clients reflect, oh my God, I can feel your passion, or not? Because when clients can feel your passion, or potential clients, as you'll hear in a few minutes, it's massively attractive. And we create a rapport and a deepening because they know they're working with the right person. So how can you bring your turn on? How can you be the most ignited, the most creative, the most inspired? And all of that works in bed too. But to live that fullness. And why does it matter? So I've talked a bit about this, but let's go into even more detail. It's attractive. Like, it's going to be part of what draws clients, partners, supporters. Let me help you with that. Like, because passion is contagious and it's compelling. And hence it inspires connection. Like, do you want to spend time around those that are getting through the day? They're making it happen. They're responsible. It's good. Are those the ones that you go, God, I want to spend more time with that person? Or is it the ones that are really turned on about it, that are excited about it? Not that we have to be positive all the time, but there's a positivity that is consistent. There is possibility and vision and excitement because it's very attractive, and therefore it does inspire that deepest connection. And I mentioned earlier, best evers. Like, your turn on leads to best evers. Your ability to let things move through you, to be inspired, to surrender into an inspiration, to take the risk of an idea that you don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but you can feel it. But then it's like, oh, I don't know, or maybe I don't have it. And we shut it down and we miss the incredible possibilities that are available to us. But if we'll step into our passion, best evers become possible. And it feels good. It's fun to enjoy life. Like, I'd rather spend my days most of the time with a smile on my face than wondering what's the next problem I got to solve. Now, sometimes it's fun to solve problems, especially if we're talking about the masculine, but we'll get back to that. So it's powerful and pleasure. So to speak to, it feels good. Pleasure actually matters. And I'm going to give you an example. I was doing a talk similar to this one, probably maybe 2012, 2013. And afterwards, I went to a gathering, kind of a cocktail thing. And I was talking to this one couple, and they're like, okay, so tell us more about this getting turned on in life, love, and business. What? And so I said, okay, what do you guys do? And it happened to be that they worked together and they were wedding photographers. I said, okay, so here's turned on, here's pleasure and not turned on and not pleasure. So you're a client sitting with potential wedding photographer, and the first wedding photographer that you interview says, I'm going to meet you at the church at this time, and we're going to take this set of photos, and we're going to make sure that each person gets in the photos, and then we'll go over here and we'll take this set of photos, and then afterwards we'll make sure that you get this set and you'll get this many of these, and then I'll follow up within 2 weeks and do all the touch-ups. So that's photographer number one. Photographer number two walks in, sits down, and said, here, it slides a piece of paper. Here's my packages. And what I really want to share with you is that when I meet with the bride and groom, I want to get to know you. I want to know your family. I am going to come into the space and I'm going to be looking for those moments where the pure magic exists. I want to capture that moment when you step away from your father as the bride. I want to capture that first look as you come through the door. I'm going to make sure to capture the feeling of your day and the connection and the communion of your family in this experience. Which photographer has passion? Which photographer is inspiring you? Which one do you want to choose? You're going to choose the one that feels. You're going to choose the one that is paying attention to how you feel. And this is why pleasure matters, because that second photographer loves their job. Loves not just their job, but the contribution that they make. So our world is a better place with pleasure. And yeah buts are all of our beliefs. Yeah buts are all the things that get in the way. All the things that say, oh, that would be nice, but, oh, if only, but, well, I can't have that much fun. I can't talk about pleasure with my team. I can't be that alive. I can't be that happy. What would they think of me? I'd be weird. Or, well, I shouldn't because this needs to be done and that needs to be done, and I've got to do this. Or, I can't, it's embarrassing. If I'm that happy, like, what are people going to think? I have responsibilities. This has to get done. That has to get done. I don't have time for pleasure. If I enjoy this, if I think that, I'm going to take the time to have fun in this, then shit isn't going to get done and things are going to fall apart. Then there's there's so many people that are suffering. There's so many people that are struggling. How dare I be happy? How dare I enjoy when there's so many that aren't? And maybe it's how dare you not be if you are, because you lead the way and you create more possibility for those that are struggling. It's not that we disregard them or don't care, but our joy and our love can have a huge impact. I was training my coaches earlier today. I have some people that are going through their coach certification. And the idea that I completely just had a midlife moment that I lost my train of thought. I will own that completely. I was training my coaches and it tied into others are struggling and it'll come back to me. Because I just happened to think of it, I was going to use the example. But this idea that it's not okay. Oh, I knew it would come back. So we don't know in the world. How many times have we heard the story of, that person stopping to say something nice to me, that person that smiled at me in the store? Like, I don't know if I'd still be here if that hadn't happened. So pure joy, the willingness to smile at someone, we have no idea the impact that we'll have. If we can approach a challenge in life or in business with love instead of criticism, including with ourselves, way more beautiful things, way more possibilities arise if we can be in that space of love, of joy, of compassion. And then of course that there's all the I got to work hard, I got to, you can't eat dessert until everything else is gone. I'll play when all the chores are done. All of that conditioning that can exist to say I got to work hard. And I'm going to challenge that you can have both. And it's that actually will make everything more magical, more synchronicities, more ease, more flow. And those are some of the qualities that we'll get into here in a couple minutes. And so, again, we were talking about the two photographers. Which photographer was more attractive? And again, it's not about romance, although it could be, but it's about who are we drawn to? And again, if we are wanting to attract clients in our business, are we attractive to them? So many businesses today are relational. Is there an attraction? Because we turn on the light, our passion, our purpose, and then those that are meant to work with us can show up. So we can create all kinds of marketing strategies and plans, and we're going to do this and we're going to implement this, and this energy is off, you'll get a fraction of the results that you would have gotten if you were actually fully engaged with it from a felt sense as much of a strategic sense. So attraction plays a huge role. And another word for attraction is captivating. Do we captivate an audience if we're speaking? Do we captivate a date if we're on a date? Do we captivate that client that says, tell me more? Wait, tell me more? Okay, how do we get started? It's that engagement. Not just because the picture says audience engagement, but it's that we are in this together. And I can feel you, and I'm curious, and I'm interested, and I want more. Bring me what you have. And so again, why does it matter? Because all this stuff can sound good, but if we don't really bring it into our body, it doesn't change anything. So captivating, there's another aspect to captivating. We are most captivating when we are ourselves. And authenticity. We want to be around people that are real. It's like a breath of fresh air when somebody is real, and we know they take off the mask and they bring their humanness. I think Sharon was talking about this before we got where everybody was on today, of like this last year, we have gotten to see so much more of the humanness of people because of the way that we've been interacting. And that is attractive. That is compelling. It's like, oh, I can relax and be myself with you. So ecstatic authenticity, which is one of the first steps in creating a turned on life and a turned on relationship. Ecstatic authenticity means I know who I am. I like who I am. I enjoy being who I am. And I'm not willing to be anything but myself for anybody or anything. And there's such freedom in that. And that freedom creates joy. And trying to be anything else backfires. whether we're creating a client relationship or a romantic relationship. If we're trying to be something that we're not, we're going to find that point where it's like, uh-oh, this is not working so well. Who's in this relationship? So our authenticity creates our attraction. Who we are is amazing. And when we don't, we will miss out from a personal standpoint. We could miss out on great lovemaking. We can miss out on our a potential partner. And from a business perspective, we miss out on the customers, the jobs, the gifts, the generosity, the miracles, the synchronicities. Like when we live a life that isn't all strategy, and Simon, you set this up so well when you at the beginning, when we don't lean 100% on strategy and we create space for inspiration. This wasn't the plan, but you know what? That's what's being called forth. And all of a sudden, something that you could never have imagined. More clients, more leads. It's like, I'm going to pick up this phone and all of a sudden you've got an interview that you didn't know you were going to have. And it brings all kinds of business. It doesn't matter what it is, but we open up and let strategy is part of it. We can't do it without strategy. But the surrendering to the moment of inspiration, when we marry that, that's a powerful combination. And it attracts this to us. And otherwise, we're wasting way too much time and energy. We're efforting way too hard when we're not open to receiving and attracting what's going to support us. Law of attraction, for anybody that has ever heard of or explored that, law of attraction is that we feel the thing that we want to attract. So feeling the pleasure of serving so many, feeling the pleasure of receiving or completing a project, receiving the results of an effort. So law of attraction has to do with our capacity to attract and receive. So how does it work? This is where we're going to get into a little bit of this conversation of yin and yang qualities, masculine and feminine qualities. And again, Simon set us up because we're going to talk about these different qualities. And what Simon said was great, was all about the masculine. It was the structure. It was, here's the strategy. Here's how we're going to go after this. Here's the plan. So there's a discipline to it. Masculine energy is a very directed energy. It's a very goal-oriented energy. It is decisive, directive. It's assertive. It's very independent. Now, before I talk about the feminine, I want to talk about the title of this slide, that it says essence energies. Energy is the key word here. Masculine energy has these qualities that we just described. Energy is not the same as gender, and it's not the same as orientation, just to be very clear, that we all have masculine and feminine energies. If we look at traditional Chinese medicine, we all have yin and yang energies, yin being the feminine energy, yang being the masculine energy. And it is the relationship. You can see the yin and the yang symbol in the center. It is both of these energies that create the most success, the most power, the most health, the most wealth in the world, is when these two energies consciously co-create and exist with each other. And what's happened in our world, especially over the last 50 years, is we've tried to say that everybody's the same. We've tried to neuter and neutralize these different expressions within us, whether we are men, whether we are women, wherever we fall on the gender spectrum. And so for most male identified bodies, masculine is prominent. For most female identified bodies, feminine is most prominent, but not always. Sometimes it's reversed and sometimes it's equal. And my point here is there's no right or wrong in how anybody expresses, but that both of these energies are essential to our success. So the strategy, masculine, the inspiration or intuition, feminine. So let's bring up the feminine qualities. The feminine qualities are the more flowing versus directed and decisive, the receptive versus the make things happen. It's a more expansive energy versus the masculine is a more focused energy. It's a receptive energy, whereas the masculine is a more penetrating energy. Competitive and collaborative. Any organization that's all competitive or any organization that's all collaborative, neither one is going to do as well as one that knows how to effectively and consciously blend those two energies. There is absolutely the formulaic side of things, the structure. And then there is that place for creative and unexpected. There is the place of, I got to make this happen. And then I'm going to let go and let what I might call the universe actually support this project. But if I think I know every step that has to happen in exactly the order that it's going to happen, which is a very masculine energy, there isn't going to be any place for any extra support to show up. No magic, no miracles, no ease, no, oh my gosh, that's done way faster than I thought. Because that's the allowing, the receiving of that inspiration and flow. So looking at the yin and the yang symbol, there's the yang side and there's the yin side. And most of us, and myself included for years doing this, was that I saw the yin and the yang and the two go together. But what I didn't notice was in the middle, that in the middle of that yang side is a fully enclosed circle of yin. In the middle of the yang side, the yin side is a fully enclosed circle of yang. The yin isn't its most expressed without the yang at the center. The yang isn't the most expressed without the yin at the center. So I'm going to go through some scenarios here where you can maybe notice some of your own patterns where that inner circle gets overamped and overused or underused. And before I go into those, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So back in those days when I was climbing that corporate ladder and driving, this being is actually quite feminine, but there was no feminine energy. As a matter of fact, myself, like so many of the women that I work with, there is a judgment that feminine is weak, feminine is passive, feminine won't be respected, feminine ends up being a doormat, all kinds of things that feminine is not okay. Now, when feminine words are applied to a masculine being, there's such judgment, incredible judgment. And I'm not going to use some of the words that show up when there's judgment towards men or with feminine words, but there's a lot of judgment in our society of the feminine. So I was like so many women, and I am putting away every one of those feminine qualities. And it's why I was overworked, exhausted, stressed, and my body was not happy and my emotions were not happy. So there was a complete overuse of that masculine energy. And then they can come into alignment. What is true and authentic for each of us? And same thing, that a powerhouse, and I'm going to say a man in this case, just making it synonymous. I may say men and women, but if that's not you, just flip the words. But that masculine presence without any heart is not appealing, whether we're talking romantically or whether we are talking business-wise. So we're going to start with what might be called the nice guy or the people pleaser. So this is what would traditionally be, or what would authentically be, a masculine being who has way too much yin open up. And what I see often is that there are amazing masculine beings that in their businesses, like I am masculine and I like things happen and I'm good with my employees or my team. But then when I go home, I'm not so masculine anymore. I kind of turn it over to her if we're talking a heterosexual relationship. So what can happen is if we overuse the yin, it becomes people pleasing. It may neutralize chemistry where we're in the friend or roommate zone. It's rare that the nice guy ever ends up on the priority list or gets anything that he wants. There's an indirectness about this nice guy thing. Like, what are they really committed to? Where are they? And it's tough to do business with somebody that's indirect. There's this, we don't have the same potency that when we know and are committed to who we are and what our purpose is. And there can be this fear of, I don't want to be one of those men. I don't want to be disrespectful. And so then there's this nice guy persona. And I'll give you an example in a moment when I go through. There's this idea that assertive, with the nice guy, assertive is a bad word. I'm going to skip. Let's see. How do I want to do this? I kind of wish I had put these in a different order, but let me talk about then the overamped yang. So this is a yin being who's running too much masculine energy. This is who I was. It was superwoman, driven, overworked, controlling, emasculating to men. Remember, I said I don't want to put men through the pain that I put men through. Didn't trust, had to do it all myself. There wasn't anybody that was going to do it as well as I could. And I mentioned, like, this plays into, if we're a feminine being running too much yang energy, orgasms don't happen. And it's very much where we're avoiding vulnerability and not trying to be taken advantage of. And we think this idea that receiving is needy. We think the feminine is weak. But this doesn't work. I wasn't happy. And we don't trust when we're in either of these amplified spaces or underamped. So here, the opposite side of that guy that's all masculine and all directive and all assertive, like, we can name it arrogant, conceited, heartless, doesn't care about anybody else, doesn't need love. I got it all. There's a lack of empathy. And so we really come into, like, I can't be soft, I can't be kind. And often it's a cover up for not feeling like we're enough. And I'm going to stop in a moment and ask if you have some questions, but I'm going to go through this last one. Here's what's interesting. Again, I'm going to use myself as an example. Quite often, in both masculine beings and feminine beings, if we are overamped in our secondary energy, so I was feminine, but way overamped in my masculine. At the same time, it's really common for us to not use that, because at the same time where it's like we're driven, we'll say yes to anything. Oh yeah, you need me to do that? Like, when, how? But yes, I'll do it. So we have no. There's no access to the no. There's no access to the boundary that says, not this week, not this month. It's the one that I'll stay up late, I'll figure out how to get it done. And so that's the saying, yes, we're trying to get something because we can't trust. We'll self-sacrifice. The bottom of the priority list. And that idea, as I said, not enough, won't be loved, won't be respected. So it's this idea that these energies express naturally within us. And I'll give you the example. So now this is what it looks like when it doesn't work well, but here's what it looks like when it does work well. You ever been in an event? And I'm going to start with the masculine. And there's just this masculine being, masculine man in this case, that walks through the room. And there's just something about them. Like, it's almost as if they command your attention. Like, you can feel them, you see them. And you also know that there's some level of heart there. And they get your attention. Like, who is that? When I'm in my relationship courses with women who are attracted to masculine men, I'll say, okay, is that man who knows who he is, what he's committed to, and where he's going, and he stands tall? Is he attractive? And they're all like, yeah, totally, super attractive. I said, okay, now take that same man, and he remains committed to who he is, what he stands for, where he's going, and then he opens his heart and he shows you what he cares about. Did his attraction go up or down? And they're all like, I'm out. So it's the combination of that predominant yang energy with the heart. And that, again, romantically, but in business as well. Like, I know you've got this, and I also know that you care. I can trust you to take this project forward, and I can also trust you to care about what happens to me or the team, depending on what our project or business might be. Same thing happens with that feminine. There's a grace that walks across the room. Who is that? Like, there's confidence, there's presence, and yet you can feel that energy. Captivating, magnetically attractive. Who is that? So when we get into a place that we are being ourselves beyond all the conditioning that says, I don't want to be that. The Me Too movement has challenged men so massively to own who they are and not be too aggressive, not be too assertive, not be too much themselves. And as women felt like they had to progress in the business world, I can't, it's that don't be bitchy, but also don't be too soft. Don't show your feelings. There's been so much cross conditioning, criticism. And when we can find that place, I have masculine energy, absolutely. But it's supporting for me because yin is my predominant energy. That masculine supports it. When I work with men who are reclaiming what we might call mojo, it's that stepping into that mojo, that confidence. Both of these are confident, but they look different. They feel different. And so this was the next slide, is this idea of you can't be too masculine, you can't be too feminine, don't be too soft, don't be too hard, don't be too rigid, don't be like, who am I? And in a moment, I'll invite you to ask some questions that will give you some insights of what's true for you. But before I do that, any specific questions that you have about these energies?
I mean, how do you like, how would you choose one over the other? If you're being authentic and you're just your authentic self, then there's really no control over whether it's overly masculine or overly feminine. You're just being yourself, right?
It's a great question, Josh. I love that. And it's what happens is most of us don't know ourselves, because go back before that event in 2001, I would have told you that I was masculine. And yet when I really got to look underneath all the beliefs and underneath all the conditioning, it was like, oh, I really am feminine, but I believed that I couldn't be, that it was bad, that it was weak, that it was needy. I see this with men very often of, I want to be the good guy. I want to make her happy. I want to make my clients happy. And I was just talking with, again, during the coach training earlier, of that masculine quality that is so great that I want to make others happy, that we end up selling out in order to make them happy. So we think it's being our authentic self, but it might not be. So you're leading right where I'm going to go. I'm going to ask you 4 questions that when I'm doing deeper work with people, we have several more, but these 4 will give you a pretty good indicator of if one is predominant for you and then which one. Because then the work is, the first part of the journey that I do with people is, what is truly authentic for you? And then how have you been showing up in life? So where I was talking about the idea of a man who in his business world, and I see this all the time, like takes charge and is in that lead and is making things happen, then comes home and says, she wants to take that lead. And I could go into a whole nother talk about those dynamics, but I'm just going to kind of preview them right now. But it's the feminine woman who is being masculine. And then it's like, why doesn't my man ever take the lead? Why am I always why am I always in charge? Why am I the only one that worries about this or that and the schedule and it? And this is where what happens quite often in our romantic lives is that the polarity gets reversed. I would meet the more passive men, but it didn't make me happy. So we're going right where you asked, Josh. Thank you. Anything else before we go there? Okay. So let's talk about what I would say is your sexual essence. It's your essence energy. And so the key is that you want to align, just as I was just saying to Josh, is that we find out what's actually true. Like I did at that event. I was like, whoa, there's a feminine woman in here, but I have been living a masculine life. Oh, I've been a nice guy, a people pleaser. There's a book for men, No More Mr. Nice Guy. It's that people pleasing, and it's like, oh, wait, it can be where my needs are just as important. So we want to get in alignment with the truth. So there's 4 questions I'm going to give you. And I want to invite you to answer these questions as if you were completely safe. You cannot be judged and everything goes perfectly. Like if you could write the script and everybody was happy, that's the way it goes. So assume totally safe, totally non-judgment, and it's perfect. Couldn't have asked for it to be better. So the first question is, and these are more of a personal nature because it's really what's true in our own energetics. So the first question is, if you were to pick your ideal lover, are they physically larger than you or physically smaller than you? And you don't have to answer that out loud, just your own answers. There's only 4. You can keep them in your head. And then the second question is, if you were to pick your ideal lover, are they physically stronger than you, i.e., they can move you across the bed? Or are you physically stronger than them? You could move them across the bed. Third question. If you are in a courting dating situation, would you prefer to ask out, pick up, and take someone to dinner, knowing that it's all going to go great? Would you ask them out, pick them up, and take them to dinner? Or would you be asked out, picked up, and taken to dinner? And then the last one is, if you were in a hot, steamy kiss up against a wall, knowing it's always fun to be in both spots, but more times than not, are you the one against the wall being kissed, knowing it's total respect, total safe, but it's the turn on? Are you against the wall being kissed? Or are you facing the wall giving the kiss? So there's no right answers here. It's a curiosity. It's a self-discovery right now. And so if you picked a partner who is physically larger than you, that's an indicator of feminine. If you picked physically stronger, that's an indicator of masculine. I'm sorry, I didn't say that right. If you picked physically larger, indicator of feminine. If you picked physically smaller, indicator of masculine. If you picked that you wanted your partner to be stronger, indicator of feminine. If you were the stronger one, indicator of masculine. If you want to be courted, asked out, picked up, taken to dinner, indicator of feminine. If you want to ask out, pick up, take to dinner, indicator of masculine. If you're against the wall being kissed, indicator of feminine. If you're facing the wall giving the kiss, indicator of masculine. So what happens most times when I'm working with men and women is they go, whoa, I didn't expect that. So I'm not going to ask. I know you're in a networking environment and a business environment. So I'm not going to, if you want to reveal something in a question, beautiful. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot or ask you to share right now. But notice, because those 4 questions shocked me. I went, oh, that's a whole different, that's not what I expected. And when we're not living in alignment with who we are, life is harder. It doesn't work as well. Magic doesn't happen. Synchronicities don't happen as much. Flow doesn't happen. The attraction that we're talking about doesn't happen. So part of the first part of the journey is to bring actual and authentic in alignment. So I had to tone down the masculine and bring up the feminine, and then the magic could happen here. I can think of gentlemen who have come and worked with me and they're like, hey, I came because I was going through a breakup or going through a divorce. You didn't tell me my business was going to get better. Well, of course it's going to get better because you're coming into alignment with who you are, and it's going to impact you again from the boardroom to the bedroom and everywhere in between. So, and here's the real thing about this is that there's a level of mastery that we can develop with this, because there's our natural resting place, but there are situations that can call us to, no matter which one is our primary energy, can go super strongly masculine or super strongly feminine. What's important, what's powerful, which makes us the most powerful presence, is that we know who we are, but then in a given situation, we can go into the other energy as that situation calls for it, so that we can have the greatest impact show up in the most powerful way. So that's where mastery comes in, is that I'm living authentically with myself, but now wherever it shows up, whether it's my kid, my lover, my clients, my business, I can go where I need to go. Stranger on the street for that matter. So it's key to look at where you're spending time. What's your authentic energy? And if there's any way that you're out of alignment, to get the most passion, to get the most success, to be the most attractive, to be the most powerful, is to get back into alignment with that, because it's about being yourself. Maximizing that power, passion, pleasure, prosperity is you, authentically your masculine and feminine, authentically who you are with your own needs, wants, desires, turn-ons, turn-offs, boundaries, living your passion and being able to claim it in the world. And it's a journey, not a destination. This isn't a continual path of discovery and being. And I'll give you just the basics of that path, and then I'm going to wind up and take questions. And so it starts with you. It starts with you knowing your wholeness, your completeness, your enoughness. And then whether we're talking about partnership or teamwork, it's the way that we relate, bringing whole beings together. That then we can trust each other, we can interact with each other, we can collaborate, we can even compete. We can create true partnership. Again, whether that's romantic partnership or business partnership, the more whole both people are, the more they trust themselves, the more they can trust each other, the more that they can interrelate. And then we can come into, and in this case, I'm using the words divine union, but it's where we're like, wow, if we're in a business environment, it's sort of like we act as one. Like this just happens. We flow together. In our lovemaking, it's like, where does one body end and the other begin? And this is the space where the ecstasy starts to show up. So it's really an evolution. It's being you. This is what Simon said at the very beginning. How we're being, how we're showing up sets the foundation for everything. And it is then how we relate. Intimacy doesn't mean sex. Intimacy means into me you see. But before I can let you see into me, I have to look into me back in the authenticity phase. Into me I see. So I know what my passion is. I know what I like. I know what I dislike. I know what works for me. I know what I'm a yes to, and I know what I'm a no to. And the more that you can trust me and I can trust myself, the stronger the relationship that we can have. And then if we go from authenticity, beingness, to intimacy, relatedness, ecstasy, the union, the flow, the magic. And we just keep doing that over and over and over again. The more authentic we are, the more connected or intimate that we are, the more ecstatic we are. And it just keeps building. If we want life to be juicier, then we have to relate in deeper ways. And if we want to relate in deeper ways, we have to show up as more of ourselves. And so it is in the first part, know who you are, like who you are. Be no longer willing to settle, sell yourself out, twist yourself into a pretzel, trying to make work, trying to make life work, trying to make a business work, trying to make love work. No more being anything but you. And that's when you become massively attractive. The strength of your relationship with you determines the strength of your relationship with another. I have that written opposite of that on the slide, but the strength of your relationship with anybody else, client, colleague, lover, friend, family, parent, child, depends directly on the strength of the relationship with you. How much are you bringing you to the table? And the quality of the relationship is dictated by how much you're showing up. Here, it's hearts, it's souls, it's passion, it's purpose. And when you bring that purpose, when you are that photographer that is that passionate, the power to transform and impact is enormous, whether we're talking two or many. And this is that masculine and feminine coming together, the power and the vulnerability that souls, and we have soulmates. Yes, we talk about soulmates all the time in romantic relationships. Let me tell you, I have soulmates in business. They are the ones that push me and invite me and challenge me and piss me off at times. And through that, we get to grow and evolve and be more of who we are. And then it's the fulfillment. It's the how did life get so flippin' good? I had no idea it could be this way. And I hear that from clients over and over again. I had this vision of what I thought was possible, and holy, this is so much better than what I thought. Those moments that take our breath away, the best evers. Didn't know it could be this good. And it's a path, and it's a journey, and it's a step-by-step, moment by moment. And so just in closing, before I turn it back over to you, is listen to the part of you that knows if there's a deeper calling and you don't yet know what it is, or you know something's out of alignment, like listen. Get clear on what's keeping you from the ecstasy, the amazingness of life. And then if you want support with that, I am available, because my life is absolutely transformed. And when I walked out of that corporate world, I was here to serve. Here to serve. And if this is something that speaks to you, if you want to uncover this, Igniting Soul Love, and then there's a code, a promo code, Nia, it's all caps. The session's $97. It's normally $197. Use the Nia code. It's $97. And you and I sit down and go through your path, professionally, personally, both, either, to really bring you back on track to having best evers, to being the most attractive, to being the most full, the most happy. So, and I mentioned this, it is that soulful path of love, all the forms of love, so that we can have the deepest of connections, intimacies, pleasures, and joys available to us as human beings. We are here to enjoy life. It may not seem like that's our purpose, but we are absolutely here to enjoy. So your turn on, your pleasure, your passion, your ecstasy serves the world. And the more that you downplay it, the less the world is served by you. And I guarantee you, you are here for a reason and a purpose. The world needs you exactly as you are right now. And it is about that fulfillment. So I will take all the questions that you have right now, and I will flip back there in case you need that. I flipped over it kind of quick, but talk to me. What are you feeling? What questions do you have? Because I stand for you being the fullest person that you are, the happiest, most passionate, because I know the world's a better place when you live fully. So thank you. And ask me your questions, share your comments.
Just thank you so much, Joanna. I mean, somehow this presentation has me very like introspective, you know. anyways, and just like looking at that balance that you talked about between the masculine and the feminine, and I can see both so much in myself. And, you know, like similar to you, for 20 plus years when I was pushing hard in business in a certain way, like I was so just adopted all those masculine qualities, and like how much I suffered as a result of it, you know. And so I feel like I'm just in a period of like approaching business from like a whole different perspective, you know, and that openness to like bring both, you know. And I've so appreciated, like with Network in Action, just to practice just showing up, you know, right, in an authentic way, and not have to like put on this mask of, you know, what I think is appropriate in business. So thank you, Network in Action members, for letting me explore, you know. And but I just feel the freedom of that, like you're talking about, and life has become so much more pleasurable and so much easier, and such less suffering. And anyways, it's just everything to be able to be myself more. So this just encourages me to take it further and to see where I still, you know, will like put on this controlling, rigid, masculine energy when I think something has to get done, or, and I'm like, okay, how can I approach that differently? Because I don't think it's necessary anymore, but I think I still will like pull on that because I know it works, and I know I can get shit done when I do, you know?
Totally,
So,
totally. That shit done mode, and then it's like, whoa, what happened? Where is life? Where's the joy? Where's the juice? Yeah.
that's right. So not really a question, but that was my share with you all.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to, it doesn't have to be a question, just a share of like, what are you noticing? Because, and thank you, Sharon, because my feeling is every truly feminine being gives themselves permission to do this, we all benefit. We all benefit. So thank you for doing that and beginning to be that example.